Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope everybody's feeling good as well as I do. So we are now in the last week of the semester. I hope everybody is as excited as I am. So as you can see over here, our material for English 4 for Diploma 3. As you can see over here is going to be about giving an oral presentation. So this is actually the last part of our project, our writing project, and the final is you're going to do an oral presentation. So it's good that we can bring a topic about oral presentation and how to give it, and this is also to help you to get perspective on how you can do a better oral presentation, and the fact that you will have next semester you'll be facing final project and you will do plenty of presentation. So I hope this material can help you to be better in giving an oral presentation. So let us check the material for this week. So as you can see, we will have the outline for the video is review and also giving an oral presentation. And in this video, I'm also going to explain a little bit about how we'll conduct our final tests. So the general outline for giving an oral presentation, so obviously you need to give an introduction. So there are some elements that you need to be paying attention to. So the first one is to capture your listeners' attention. So for example, you can start by giving a question or starting with a story, a comments, or something that you can actually engage your audience with, and then make them think about this topic that you want to bring. Okay, so something that can easily attract their attention. Okay, and then after that, the next point when in the introduction part is to state your purpose. So why you want to do this presentation. So you say what is this presentation. So I want to explain about this, I want to talk about that. And then you also need to be able to present an outline for your talk, so the audience or the listeners will know what is to expect from your presentation. Yeah, so those are some things that you need to know in the introduction. And then we will talk about the body of the presentation. So there are some elements that you need to take care, that you need to be paying attention to. The first one is to present your main points one by one in a logical order. So just like what I did just now, there's an outline and there's an introduction to it, and then after that I'm going to the body part and I'm making it in a logical order so that your listeners or your audience will not get confused with the flow of your presentation. Okay, so that's the first thing about the body part. And then after that, a pause at the end of each point. So make sure that people have time to take notes or think about what you are saying. So if you are keeping on talking all the time, then it will be a bit hard for most audience to understand or to catch up with what you are saying. Yeah. And then the next part is make it clear when you want to move to another point. So for example, you can say over here, so the next point is, and then however, we must not forget, something like that. Okay, so when you want to move to another point, it is important to give a hint to the future points, the next point. Okay, and then the next part is to use clear examples to illustrate your points and or the key findings. So it's very important to bring it to something that is more, I would say it's not too abstract to the audience to get. Yeah, so for example, if you say it in a diagram, probably make it into percentage. So a half of the pie chart is indicating this, the other half will be doing that, something like that. And then after that, if it is possible, if it is appropriate, you consider using visual aids. So something like with using pie chart, using a map or a picture would be very good to to bring about your presentation. And the other thing is that when you're doing this visual aids, make sure that you don't really focus too much on the aids, but what is more important is your delivery, the way you want to say what is in the picture or what is in the chart or what is in the map. Yeah, so that's those are several things that you need to know in the body part. And then in the conclusion part, make sure that you leave your audience with a clear summary of everything that you have covered. So I have talked about A, B, C, and D, something like that. And then also do not let the talk just fizzle out. So you make sure that you have reached the end of the presentation. So probably the best way to say it is don't leave it hang. Yeah, so I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, etc., etc. Okay, so those are some things you can use to end a presentation. And then after that, you also need to summarize the main points again. So I have talked about A, B, C, and D, and then restate again the purpose of your talk and say that you have achieved your aim. So it's something like, I think it's something like the conclusion in a paper, in your paper. So you can bring again that part in the conclusion. And then after that, thanks the audience for their attention, for listening to your presentation. And then it is also important to invite questions at the end of your presentation when it is necessary. Okay, and this is also something that we will do later in our final exam. So you also need to invite questions from the audience, and in this case the audience will be only me. So obviously you're going to invite me to give you questions, and that's actually part of the test that I'm going to assess for you. Okay, so let's just summarize very quickly. So there should be introduction. You try to engage with the audience, drag their attention to you, and then in the body part, make sure it's clear. And then you can use visual aids if it is if you think it's good. And then in the conclusion part, make sure that you have a clear summary and make sure that you have your points explored, elaborated again. And then after that, you thank the audience and invite a question. And then also in delivering your presentation, you need to be able to pay attention to the language. That's why we're bringing you this topic. So you want to keep it simple. So you don't want it to complicate. You don't want to complicate your language and make it hard for the audience to understand what you're saying, and not to show off your vocabulary. Of course, you want to show a little bit of your vocabulary, but there's no point to show off your vocabulary if no one understands what you're saying or what you're trying to communicate. Or make it simple. Probably I would say simple sentences are best. So if it is a complex sentence, and if it is too complex sentence, the audience will lose chances to understand what you're saying, something like that. Okay, and then after that, you make sure you emphasize the key points. Make sure that people realize that what are the key points of your study. So something like the one that's mentioned in the conclusion part. So you kind of bring about the key points again on what you have made in your research, and what is the impact of it, for example. Okay, and then after that, check the pronunciation of difficult, unusual, or foreign words beforehand. Okay, and then So for this one, so for some keywords that you think it's going to be difficult to say, let's say for example user, some people may say it user, for example. Yeah, so you make sure that some words that you think is difficult to understand, or it's unusual, or something that is actually key points, that you need to make sure that you pronounce it correctly. Because if you don't pronounce it correctly, while that's actually the keyword, then people will get lost in what you are saying. Okay, so make sure that any unfamiliar words have been identified before, and then you write down how to pronounce these words. And then in delivering your pronunciation, you also need to make sure that your voice is clear when you're communicating. So it's not too low, but it's also not too loud. Just make sure that it's loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. And then speak slowly and clearly. There's nothing to rush unless you have time limit to do your presentation. But even if you have the time limit, I don't think that speaking fast will help you. Okay, so speaking fast will make it hard for people to understand. Therefore, slow down. Just make sure that your arguments or your points are delivered. And then after that, practice the avoid saying like probably stumbling in the middle of the presentation is possible, or it is normal. However, when you want to when in the time when you are stumbling, it is best to avoid saying or something like that. And these words occurs most often during transitions from one idea to another idea. And sometimes this may be as distracting to audience. However, you cannot always do it quite. I would say it's not often, but once in a while you cannot do it. Maybe without realizing it, you're actually doing it, like in my presentation right now. However, if you want to do it, if you do it frequently, then it may a bit distracting. It may be a bit distracting to audience. And then after that, vary your voice quality. It is also important, to stress it down, stress it, and not stressing some words that you think it's not quite important. Yeah, so if you always use the same volume and pitch, your audience will stop listening. So if you're being flat, people will not really get what's your presentation going on. And then also make sure that speakers with accent need to slow down. I think this one may not very applicable for us, because all of us are non-native, I would say. So I think everybody will understand what I'm saying, and I will understand what you're saying, so it won't be applicable to us. And then when you begin a new point, make sure you use a high pitch and volume, and then slow down for key points, and also use pauses. So using pauses are very, very helping you, are very, very important, especially when you are having plenty of things to discuss. If you're not pausing, people will be having too much information at one time. So it's very important to use pauses. And then when you're doing presentation, in face-to-face, of course, when you need to have a body language. And of course, it's not going to be quite applicable when you're doing it online, because you're going to sit down and sitting in front of the camera. But if you are presenting in front of real audience, in front of live audience, then make sure that you stand straight and comfortably, hold your head up, don't sit down, don't put your head down, and then make sure you use your hand. Even right now, I'm actually trying to use my hands quite naturally, and facial expressions at your and your body to the communication. And don't make sure that you don't turn your back to on the audience, because obviously that won't be polite. And when you're standing in front of your audience, make sure that you keep your hands off your pocket, because it is quite I won't say it's not nice, but it's just it would be a bit uncomfortable for people to see you putting your hands in your pocket several times, putting it out again. You know what I'm trying to say over there. Yeah, so some things that you need to pay attention to in delivering your presentation is also to use your body language. And also be interactive with your audience. You know, you can always ask how they're feeling. Do you think is it clear? And you don't have to apologize for anything. For example, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that, because it will make you it will only make you feel more awkward or more nervous. And some of you may, I'm sorry, I'm nervous, I'm sorry, I'm, you know, you keep on saying you keep on apologizing for everything, but no, you don't need to. Okay, they will understand that you are nervous, so just keep on with your presentation. Okay, so that's actually the end of my presentation today, everyone, and that's actually the last material for this semester. So I'm very excited about this semester. So I would just like to remind you again, because next 2 weeks from now, we are going to have final tests. So the final test, as I have mentioned in the class, we're going to have 2 modes. So there will be writing and then speaking. So the writing is the mini research paper that you have done over, I think, from week 9 until week 14, and then it weighs 70%. Make sure that you covered all the elements in the mini research. And then after that, we'll do speaking test, which is in form of presentation, and it weighs 30%. And as a note, everyone, there will be for our final score, there will be 10% for discussion forum, assignments 25%, midterm exam 30%, and the final exam 35%. And by the way, for the final exam, you need to know that in the writing it will be a group score, but in the speaking it will be individual score. So I would like to discuss a little bit about how you will do your writing and how to submit. So what you will submit is your mini research paper, the final draft, of course. So submit it 15 minutes. The latest is 15 minutes before English 4 schedule released by academic. And then so you need to submit it in the PDF and document version. And make sure before you submit, you consult with the rubric that I have provided for you in week 15. And then in the presentation, what you will do is you will have 10-minute presentation, 5-minute presentation, 5 minutes for the presentation itself, and 5 minutes for question and answer session. And each person in your group must answer the question, because I'm going to take score individually. And then make sure that you dressed up formally for the presentation. And it's also good to check the rubric that I have provided in separate file. And that's actually the end of my material for this week and this semester, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to this video, and I hope everyone can catch up with with the assignments, with the writing, and also with the presentation. And I hope that you do your best for the final test and everybody got the score as expected. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and I hope everybody is feeling good. Goodbye, everyone. See ya.